welcome to this afternoon's work session. Appreciate everybody being here. We're going to have roll call at this time. Commissioner Felicia Franklin Warner. Can't hear you, Commissioner.
Present.
Commissioner Sana Gregory.
I'm here, sir.
Commissioner Gail Hambrick.
Present.
Commissioner DeMont Davis. Okay, DeMont Davis is not currently with us. Other commissioners are accounted for. Is there any commissioner who'd like to take up any of the items that was sent by the pre-agenda for next board meeting? Any items up for discussion? All right, hearing none, we will go to our discussion items. First one is senior services charges and fees policy. Oh, Ms. Strotter.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I was talking. I'm sorry. I was muted out. I forgot to unmute.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, I would like to discuss something for the next board meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
It's number 3 regarding the recommendation for facility services. I just want to have a discussion because I wanted to add something to that, but we can wait, I guess, until the end of this agenda.
Yeah. So it was. Give me the discussion point.
Number 3 on the agenda that was sent.
I don't have that in front of me, ma'am. You said it was.
Well, it says recommendation for facility services.
Okay, custodial services. You know
Yes.
that? Okay. All right. We will take that up. I will go back to Ms. Strotter.
Is it okay for me to, I have to leave it on, the mask?
Can the commissioners online
Can you
hear
guys
her?
hear me?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, how's everyone?
Hello.
So, the purpose of today is to discuss with you guys about establishing a framework for our fees and policies within senior services. With us expanding and having new senior centers and intergenerational centers coming on board, we felt it was very important for us to just establish a framework with how we do our fees and our charges. Inside the document, it spelled out how we will go about making those recommended changes. For instance, a couple of weeks ago, we did a market analysis, and that's where we realized that in some instances, some of our classes, we were undercharging, and then in some instances, we may have had classes where we were overcharging. So after we took a look at it and conferring with the COO, we felt that it was important for us just to establish this framework. So this framework, it allows us to be able to adjust the fees and charges for our classes, our programs, rentals, even organizations that may be requesting to use a facility for free. It's nothing outside of what we're traditionally doing, because right now, even when someone requests to use our facility for free, we bring that before the board, and it is at your pleasure to approve or to deny the use of our facilities for free. So this is just a document that gives an overview of what we're proposing to do. Also, one of the things that we will do is anytime that we are proposing to do fee changes, we would do those at the beginning of the year in January. We will bring that before the board to have you take a look at it, to have supporting, I'm sorry, my mask is making it a little difficult for me to talk. We would have supporting documentation explaining to you why we are proposing to do a fee change. Most of it is going to be activity-based costing, market analysis, just taking a look at what we need to do. We will propose that to you, and upon your approval or denial, we could make appropriate changes for that upcoming budget year. So this is for you to, we're requesting for you to adopt our fees and charges policy for the department.
Okay, so and I apologize if I missed it. Did you already say anything about a fee structure? What the cost would be?
The fee structure that we currently have is already in place. There's nothing in this document that's specific to all of our fees and charges. But what I wanted to do was put the proposal out there for you guys to accept the fee policy and charges, the fees and charges policy. Oh. And then I do have a recommendation to change a particular class our aquatic classes, and then there's also some information in here to establish the black box theater rental fees and charges.
Okay, so the first one, you're just wanting us to accept the policy.
Accept the policy.
Okay, so in reference to the policy, does any commissioners have any questions in reference to that?
Let me say this because I have not read what you are proposing, but I'm not sure if this is a good time for that. First of all, I don't know how many people are visiting the centers now. I know I'm not, and I don't want to scare people away when we do have a little bit of openness and all with, I'm not sure if it's going to be fee increases or whatever. Like I said, I have not read all of what you're presenting, but I'm a little skeptical about making changes right now.
From what I'm understanding,
So there-
Commissioner, the policy already exists. We just did not have formally adopted it, correct?
Yes, so everything that's in this policy and procedure really is describing how we do business currently. We just do not have an established framework for our department. Inside this document, there's no additional charges, there will be no additional fees. It just explains, like, for an instance, if you look in the section about nonprofits, it just gives the guide to what we currently follow. If a nonprofit wants to use the facility, they have to do a special facility request. We bring it before the board, you accept it or you deny it. It is also saying that if we are going to change any policies or fees, that we would bring this before the board every year in January to have you take a look at it and to approve it. So this is just for us to establish the framework in our department so our entire team is on the same page and you as a board understand exactly how we do business as it relates to our fees and policies. Now, the second item.
Hold on, we're still on first.
Okay.
You have something to add, Mr. Stanford?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Board Chairman. So Parks and Recreation, when we established fees and charges and when Senior Services was separated out as a separate department, there was no framework in place to provide the proposed fee structure, what might be in place. Ms. Strata-Tanks is providing context here because we're now onboarding additional facilities. She thought it was prudent that at least there be framework in place, if nothing else. So for the most part, we used to kind of mirror what was in Parks and Recreation. Concerning Senior Services may have a different proposed fee structure in place at some point in time. She wanted to make sure that the board had some sense of how the proposed structures were in space. So therefore, if there was any changes at a later date, there was at least a systematic approach to how we address it. So the fact that there was a department in place in our leisure service side that was addressing it, Ms. Strata wanted to make sure that there was something in place for Senior Services as well.
And of course, this paperwork will be provided to us for our further reading on it.
Yes, everything that's inside here spells out step by step each section of our department and where we have fees and charges. It spells out step by step what we would do and how we would present it to you for your approval. So this does not give us carte blanche to just be able to just change fees and charges at our discretion. Like Dietrich said, it's just a framework.
Okay, any other questions for her in reference to this?
I just want to commend you for actually streamlining, I guess, putting the framework together and actually memorializing it. That is great work. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have another comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Have this been presented to your board that you have in place, because they are very vocal and all that?
So the board, our advisory boards are already kind of aware of all of our fees and charges. Anytime before we implement something, we do include everyone. We try to include our seniors, our staff, and our advisory boards, because this is not going to change how we currently operate business. This is business as usual for them. So there's no update or change or anything that would impact the advisory board.
Anything else? Any other questions? All right, let's go to number 2, aquatic class fee change.
So the second item is we did a market analysis on all of our classes, instructional classes, and all of our program offerings. And we actually were quite surprised. We were thinking that we were going to be below the market analysis results. But actually, we were right on target with what the market is doing as it relates to instructor-led classes. What we did find is that for our swim lessons and our aquatic classes, we have a parity issue internally in the department. So all of our fitness classes are $4, but our aquatic classes are actually $3. So we're proposing to change the price of our aquatic classes from $3 to $4. This has kind of been discussed with our instructors. It has been mentioned to our seniors. I've learned through the years that before we do anything, there has to be a conversation with our seniors. They're very smart, they're very savvy, they understand, they know what they want, they know what they don't want, and anytime you're about to add an additional fee or charge, it kind of puts them on edge. So we have had conversations with them about our classes and us doing a market analysis, and they know that something may happen. They don't know the what, but I will say this from being very comfortable with our seniors, $1 going up $1 for our aquatic classes, it won't cause too much heartburn. Anything past $1 or $2 may, but this right here will put us in line with the market analysis, and it will also delete the parity issue amongst our fitness instructors internally.
Again, Ms. Trotter, I would like for your advisory board to comment, have some kind of remarks, or at least present it to them and all. You don't hear it, but I hear it when I'm there or when I'm around those seniors. So I think it would be good if you have not gone, talk with that advisory board, that you let them know. I think that would be a good idea.
Any other statements, questions?
Yes, sir. Ms. Tanks, I just wanted to make sure this is all, classes are in addition to what that annual fee that seniors pay, whether they're in-state or in-county or out of county. The classes are something additional, right?
This is additional. One of the things that we have done internally, we have hired a lot of staff that come with a lot of skill sets, so we're able to offer a lot of free classes. So what we do is, most of the time when we have a paid class, we ensure that there's a comparable, and when I say comparable, we're talking about our in-house staff that could teach a beginning level class. So we do try to take in consideration that there may be seniors that may not be able to afford classes that cost a little more.
Okay. And this fee, that $1 more, that's going to be whether you are, again, in county or out of county, right?
Correct. That will be whether you're in county or out of county. Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any other questions? All right, ma'am, let's go to Flint River Black Box.
Okay, so the next item is the Flint River Black Box Theater. As you know, the Flint River Community Center has a Black Box Theater. Our staff, we have really taken our time to figure out exactly how we need to go about establishing rental fees for the Black Box Theater. We looked at Black Box Theater in Florida at Commissioner Warner's recommendation, so we spent a lot of time talking to their best practices down in Florida, and then we also looked at Rockdale County. They have a Black Box Theater, and then we also looked at the Performing Arts Center here in Clayton County to make sure that when we established these fees that we weren't out of line with the market, and just making sure that our fees are community friendly, community oriented, so we don't price our community out of being able to use a Black Box Theater. So the fees that you see here, it is a combination of Rockdale County taking a look at the PAC, the Performing Arts Center here, and we really just tried to massage it to make sure, like I said, that we're trying to meet the community, and also it can be a revenue generator for the county as well. So the fees that are attached, it spells out, we have resident rates and we have non-resident rates. So we have hourly rates, and it's $55 per hour for residents, $66 per hour for non-residents. Then we have weekly fees, or weekday fees, weekend fees, full day fees, half day fees, and weekly fees. And I know this seems like probably an overkill, but in the industry, this is very important because of how people book shows. So you have to be very mindful about the time frames that you're giving them to be able to rent the theater. Now this is for residents and non-residents. So we're talking about community type shows. And as we work through the RFP for the Black Box Theater, we are looking at having peak seasons and non-peak seasons, because in the industry, there is a peak season where a lot of shows are booked during this time of the year. And non-peak season, this is where we're looking to do those community shows where senior services, parks and rec, the community comes in and do a lot of community type shows. So those are those fees for those type programs in the days, and the minimum amount of hours that the theater can be rented. And then the next section, it is for other organizations, and this is really just the base fee. There are a lot of different fee models out there as I continue to work with Carol Rogers, looking at best practices for the RFP. This is a section that may change as we get our feet wet with the Black Box Theater, because when you look down in Florida, what they do, they charge the organization based upon how much income that business makes, and they do a percentage. So if an organization is trying to rent the Black Box Theater, based upon what their income level is, that's how you do the hourly rate. We didn't go with that route for this one because, like I said, we haven't been in business at all. And so once we get about a year in and just take a look at it, we will go with the weekly fee and the hourly fee that Rockdale County uses. And that's what's presented here.
Finish?
Yes.
All right, any questions?
That's
Yeah.
great. Go ahead.
I just want to make sure, I know you said you looked at the Clayton County PAC, so we're not pricing ourselves out, right? Or we're not necessarily, I guess you compare those two, because again, we don't want to overprice ourselves where people go to the PAC, or at the same time, we don't necessarily want to be the PAC's competitor. How did you look at that?
Yes, so that's what we looked at, but the Black Box Theater is a little different, so we're not comparable. We're talking about a small, intimate, quaint theater, so we couldn't really go, if it was comparable, we would have went with the exact same prices. But because it's not, that's why we went with the intimacy of Rockdale, because it's comparable. We're talking about two mid-sized Black Box theaters, which are basically the same kind of theater, and that's why we went with the Rockdale fee structure.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This is great work. I'm so excited about this. Oh, this is so awesome. I heard the question that Commissioner just raised, and thank you for your answer to that. The other thing to keep in mind is that there's so much going on in the area. It's just going to make us competitors in the market. It's not that you're competing with the school system. Remember, the school system, they're always booked with school shows for the most part. Or they have the kids in there working, because you have several schools that are pulling on that facility. So what's beautiful about the Black Box Theater is it gives the community another aspect of a venue to be able to utilize. I remember some folks even reaching out over to the PAC, and it was just booked. It stays booked. So it's good for our area. It's good for us to work together. And also, just so you'll know too, Commissioner, the school system has been involved with the development of this entire facility every step of the way. That's from Dr. Smith to even Dr. Colbert. We have made sure that everybody had a seat at the table, including those that are in the industry. So I just want to commend you, Director Strotter, because you have really put a lot of work into this. But I know that fee structure down there would not work for here. I don't think it would at all. But thank you so much for what you've done. I'm excited.
Any other comments?
Let me ask one simple question. How many instances of reservations did the PAC have last year?
I'm not sure. I do not know. Most of the research that I did basically was going to their online site, because I was just looking at prices, fee structure, their insurance requirements, and that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure about their booking.
Yeah.
So if I could answer that, once again, the director of the PAC was involved with us with this facility. Everybody has been at the table to make sure that our I's were dotted and our T's were crossed. And then the other thing I want to share with you is the school system is looking to possibly begin to use that facility, because think about how many schools are in our area, and all the schools may not be performing arts schools, but every school wants to put on a show with their child. So now those schools such as Brown Elementary, as Point South Middle, Point South Elementary, they've got access to a facility as well. And we've already got a IGA in place between the school system. So I just want the commissioners to know that they have been involved every step of the way. So thank you again.
Any other questions, comments, or statements? Reference to the black box.
There is a rental agreement that is also attached to the proposal. We met with Mr. Reed, talked to him about it, and instead of reinventing the wheel, we used the exact same rental agreement that we have for our facility rental. It has some of the same insurance requirements. We did change the application to be able to meet the needs of the industry. So there have been some changes, but it has been fully vetted by Mr. Reed. He took a look at it to make sure that we were in compliance with the insurance and things of that nature.
All right, well, we definitely thank you for the work that you're doing in all of these areas. Continue to do the excellent work and make sure you take care of our seniors, because
I will
as
do it.
Commissioner Hambrick has said, they are very inquisitive. And we definitely hear from them if they think that things don't need to change, or even when they need to change. So thank you for having a listening, attentive ear. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is the solid waste collections presentation. Josh and Jeff, J and J.
Good evening, Commissioners, Chairman. Thank you again for having me. As a product of our last presentation at the work session, the request was made through the Solid Waste Authority Board to take a deeper look into option 4, which was one of the options we presented when we gave kind of the 5 different options to you in the last work session. So this presentation specifically drills down into that option, gives a little bit more granularity and breaks it down into fundamentals, enhancements, and then a little bit more drill down into the fee collection process. So with that, I will, yes. All right, so what we did here is we kind of broke down, just to remind everybody, option 4 that was identified in the last work session was essentially mandatory collection, where the county would contract directly with haulers to service individual service areas within the county. What this slide presents is kind of the fundamental elements of what that looks like. Essentially, you've got residential curbside collection is mandatory under this option. The county would be part of actively identifying the base level of service that would be delivered at the curbside. You would, as the county, you would contract directly with haulers via an RFP process. The county would be divided up into geographic service areas where only one contractor would provide service, and then the county would negotiate base price with the individual haulers through the RFP process. Next slide. One variation on this model that we thought was worth bringing forward and discussing is the idea of having more than one hauler within those individual service areas. And that's an issue that's been brought up before in our work with other municipalities. The breakdown becomes, in a mandatory collection system where you've got contracted haulers within service areas, typically you would do a single hauler. The benefits of the single hauler in one geographic district is you give that hauler a guaranteed customer base, which promotes competitive pricing. They don't have to compete within their market in order to secure their customers. It also provides the advantage of reducing the number and frequency of trucks on county roads, because you now just have one hauler servicing that area, not multiple haulers coming in and out. It also gives you the ability to reduce the number of days that you have trash receptacles at the curbside, because it's being managed and delivered in sequence by one hauler. If you were to entertain having multiple haulers in the service areas, one of the first things you do lose is you lose that guaranteed customer base, and so therefore that incentive for competitive pricing starts to wane and diminish. You also now have the possibility of more trucks on the streets on more days out of the week. And then you also have the potential to have waste receptacles on the streets for multiple days, depending on the timing and service schedules of the haulers in that district. Next slide. So going back to the option for the mandatory collection with contracted haulers via the county, in addition to those fundamental elements, there's also possible program enhancements. One of the first enhancements is expanding the service to the citizens. Through one of these programs, you can include curbside recycling as part of the base fee. You can include yard debris pickup. You also have the option to incorporate bulk item service, so your mattresses, your furniture, some of your white goods, and those can either be included in the base price or worked in as part of the RFP process as a separate set fee. There's also an opportunity to promote and facilitate a senior citizen discount that could also include backdoor pickup. There's also the potential enhancement to incorporate an administrative fee. This could be used to normalize the competitive fees by your different haulers across the county, so everyone would pay the same. It has the potential to fund the additional administrative costs that may come along with supporting a program like this. It has the potential to fund amnesty days, so those are your special waste days, so those can be electronic pickup days, hard to dispose of waste days, some of those additional days that a lot of people kind of stash that waste away in their house, never knowing what to do with it. You could use those to promote those activities. It could also be used to fund beautification projects in the county. Other enhancement potentials, you also have the ability to potentially have uniform waste containers, such that all the trash receptacles in the county would look the same. You have the ability to have consistent collection days within individual service areas. And then you also have the potential enhancement of developing a consistent customer service program through the county, whether that's through a separate department or the deployment of additional dedicated staff. Next slide. So when looking at the components of one of these type of mandatory collection county contracted hauler programs, there are certain things that specifically influence the price. Having thoughtfully delineated geographic service areas definitely has an impact on influence of the price. You influence it by having both large and small areas to promote competitive pricing amongst the different size haulers. You design them for maximum collection efficiency. So you get those benefits of lowering the cost of delivering the service by the haulers by giving them that every house on the street with logical layouts, access to large state highways, interstates to promote good logistical transportation. And then you eliminate the competition within those service areas, again, giving them that guaranteed customer base. You also have, as part of this, one of the main components that influence this price is making curbside collection mandatory. When you eliminate the mandatory component, that efficiency falls out. You no longer have, I collect every house that's on this street, which is one of those huge benefits to one of these programs and is an influencer in price. Other things, making your RFP awards to your haulers multi-year or renewable over a period of years, obviously is an influencer on price. And then minimizing the hauler's involvement in bill collection is another influencer on price. Having a scenario where they generate one bill and send it to the county for their service area is an influencer, as opposed to sending out envelopes to individual citizens for 10, 20, 30,000 customers. It also helps them not have a heavy hand in enforcement of delinquent bill collections, which is another influencer in their ability to offer competitive pricing. So in terms of ways to facilitate citizen input and education for a program like this, you've got several options. Some of the more classical ones, online and telephone surveys, obviously are an option. You have mailings, interactive town hall meetings where you're bringing a lot of the vetted information already to the table, BOC work sessions like this, and then ultimately referendums. So here I'd like to dig in just a little bit more on the different fee collection options, because in our last presentation, last work session, we gave that kind of what we refer to a measles chart, but it kind of gave a kind of high level comparison of the different fee collections and the elements that existed with each. Here what we did is we just put a slide for each of those options up just so we can touch on them a bit more specifically. The first one that was on that list in the last presentation was the property tax bill. This is a common practice regionally. It's an efficient funding method in that it allows you to obtain all of your funds at one time during the year as opposed to collecting it over multiple times during the year. Through that efficient funding method, it can provide, based on timing, the ability to cover the upfront funding that's necessary to implement the program. It does have the advantage of it collects the fee from the property owner, and you're not dealing with the issue of renters, is it the occupant or the owner. It does have an enforceable factor via the property lien, and it does have, in this situation, as almost all of these are, the county would collect the payments from the owners and then be able to pay the hauler directly for their individual service area. If we go into the water bill as another option, this bill would be sent to the occupant, not necessarily the owner, as a standalone bill inside the water bill envelope. And that's through discussions with the water authority in terms of their willingness to place that standalone bill in their envelope. At that point, the county could control the frequency. That could be monthly, that could be quarterly or annually. It would require some additional resources through whether it be additional funding or staff to handle things like bill creation, payment processing. And then you do have there is the issue with enforcement. Unlike the property tax bill, one of the first logical places we go with enforcement is, well, you just suspend the service. Well, unfortunately, that's counterproductive to the intent of the program. The program's got a large focus on illegal dumping. If you suspend the service, then at that point you're giving an incentive for people to return back to dumping illegally. So there is the other issue of potentially turning the water off, which is not deemed to be a very viable option for the not paying your trash fee. The third option would be some kind of code enforcement that was imposed upon a property owner. But again, the enforcement element here has some challenges that would need to be worked out. Again, the county would collect the payment from the occupants and then turn around and ultimately pay the haulers directly. Another one of the payment options that was presented in the last session was a standalone bill generated by the finance department. Here we have the option to potentially send this bill to the property owner or the occupant as a standalone bill. Billing frequency could vary, again, and if done annually, it could potentially have that upfront funding possibility like the property tax bill. Here we have additional resources needed as well, a bit more because now we've got bill creation, we also have postage, payment processing, and again the enforcement issue still has its challenges. There is the potential that this standalone bill could be placed in the property tax envelope, and that could eliminate postage. And again, this would be where the county collects the payments from the occupants or the owners and then pays the hauler directly. We also looked at a standalone bill generated by a third-party entity, so taking the complete process out of house. Here you have the same option. You could target the occupant or the owner. You have control over frequency again. Here, the additional funding is basically to cover that third-party entity cost, whatever those may be. Same issues with enforcement in terms of suspending service, or do you go through some kind of code enforcement option? And again, county collects the payments and sends them directly to the haulers. The last option we looked at was that the bill collection stays with the hauler. Here, one of the things is we eliminate one of those incentives to influence pricing by putting the bill collection back on the hauler. It would require the collection of, if there wasn't a potential administrative fee, that would now be collected by the hauler, and the management of getting that fee back to the county would have to be addressed. Here, we don't have the option to actually target the owner because we would just be the hauler bills the occupant directly. Mm-hmm. Typically, that frequency is quarterly. And again, we also have the enforcement issues, and the responsibility of enforcement becomes something that would have to be vetted out in terms of who's actually delivering that enforcement in this scenario. Would it be the county or would it be the hauler themselves? That basically kind of wraps up digging into this one. At this point, I'd say we're open to questions. I'm sure my partner Jeff here will step up and answer any questions as need be as well. But do any of the commissioners have any questions?
All right, any questions?
Do you have a slide where we can see, like in a chart, just a basic overview of the various options, the billing options? I know you went through each slide, but are you able to kind of put it to where we can see it side by side and, see the positives of whatever the options are?
So I don't know if we actually have access. We had a similar slide to that in the previous presentation. It may not have hit on it.
Okay.
But what we can do is we can pull something like that together.
Yeah, if you
So
would, that would be
Absolutely.
just simplify it and just recreate it.
Absolutely.
Or create a new one and send it to each of us, as well as this current presentation and the last one again, if you don't mind.
Sure,
That
absolutely.
way we'll have the most up-to-date presentations. Mr. Commissioner Davis, did you have something?
Yeah, I had a couple comments and questions. I did have a town hall meeting with District 4, and we actually discussed this and put out a survey for it. And we found that roughly about 90% did want trash pickup, but over 75% of them did not want it included in their tax bill. Most of them wanted a separate billing. So just looking at that, and then the other point was, as far as renters, can it be broken down to where you have folks that have living in their primary dwellings, and then those that have rental properties here? Can it be a way of mixing it up, or a hybrid situation, where those that do have multiple properties here, yes, we include that in their tax bill, but those that are residents of Clayton County in their primary dwelling, they would have the option of some sort?
Let me answer the first one for you, because I spoke with Mr. Baskin the other day. He's actually researching and will give me a response or
Okay.
answer to that very question about the renters, those properties that are used as rentals. Could we directly send to the property owners the
Yeah.
trash bill?
Yeah.
So he's checking into that. The second part of his question.
Oh, sure, and the property tax bill is just, it happens to be what's commonly used here regionally as a mechanism to collect the fee. And it does have some advantages associated with it in terms of particularly directing it to the owner. You eliminate the issue of having to target renter occupants versus owners. And you do have some level of enforcement that is not turn the service off or enforcement. But it's not the only way the fee's collected, Commissioner. There are other entities, cities in the county that have that collect on a water bill. The city of Atlanta does a standalone bill. So the means in which to collect the fee can absolutely vary from the tax bill. It just, with that shift, just comes some additional challenges that have to be worked through, primarily through targeting the right entity in terms of the owner, and then addressing how enforcement will be handled.
Thank you.
And I think that's the key, as Chairman said, once we find out if it can be sent to the owner, because that's got to be the target person, the owners, because everybody right now has an opportunity to get service, but they're not. So we really have to get it to the owners where we have some type of enforcement with this. That's my thing. And I know too, today, the meetings I've been attending, people are very, very much in favor of this trash service. However, they don't want it on their tax bill. And so I can kind of agree with that. Is there also the option of putting the bill in the assessment notice? I don't know, whatever.
I mean, being able to transmit the bill as a standalone bill in the assessment notice, that's not a bad idea. I mean, it's about targeting the owner is really one of the biggest challenges with figuring out the fee mechanism, because the owner is the ultimate there's where that connection is in terms of the investment in the community, the more likely entity to pay. It maintains, if they're a renter, having that service is an incentive to them to be able to offer that as part of their package in a lease. And so that by all means is who we want to target. And the assessment, it's not the tax bill anymore. It just happens to be an envelope that goes to the owner. Might not be a bad place to slide a standalone bill.
But you also got to look at who does that bill come back to? The hauler, the county, third party. Somebody has to be responsible for collecting it and processing the bill, the money.
Yes.
So there's other things that come with that as well. But yeah, that's something else we definitely need to take a look at, as you said, the assessment bill. So,
And I agree. And by that same token, Mr. Chair, that customer service piece is going to be key as well, because those are the complaints we get now
Exactly.
that people call in for private haulers who leave trash or just go out of the communities with trash flying out of the trucks. So we have to have some mechanism of customer service as well.
Agreed.
They didn't get my trash today or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I asked this question one time before, but when it comes to the collections, if we collected the fee, the money, in finance, okay, if we collected the fee, could the haulers, and I guess anything could be done through the RFP process, be responsible for the customer service since they're dealing directly with the customers?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, shifting the customer service, one of the benefits of the customer service residing with the county is consistency. You have a framework in which you're delivering the same response, dedicated response time, dedicated action to any citizen that complains. You can outline in your RFP the expectations of customer service, but once you relinquish the ownership of that to the haulers, you do have the risk of that not being consistent. Not every hauler would necessarily be, now it doesn't mean that you could not levy action against them in response to them not delivering consistent customer service, but you've added another layer of administration and potential avenue to where you would still receive the complaints. Because if the citizen called the hauler and didn't like the answer the hauler gave them,
They're gonna call us anyway.
Call you
Absolutely.
anyway.
But unless we only utilize one hauler, then it's consistent.
That's correct. Now, there are probably not many haulers that could handle the entire county.
It's only two I can think of. Yeah.
But there are some that could.
All right. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Commission?
Yes. Okay. Question I have is when you said that there were the option for 4 different areas. Now, how would the price be consistent between the areas if they're separate RFPs? How can we ensure that one area is not going to have a different price than another area if they have different haulers?
Commissioner, there will be different prices amongst the service areas. The way we level that and normalize it is through that administrative fee. So similar to Gwinnett County. Gwinnett County is broken up into 5 service areas. When they solicit that RFP, the pricing that comes in is varied based on the size of the service area, the density of the service area. And so they have a $2 administrative fee, but that's an average. So they will apply for one area, it may receive a $1.25 service fee. The other area may receive $2.10, whatever's necessary to bring all the districts up to one flat price across the county.
Got it. I'm clear on that now. Thank you so much for that clarity.
No problem.
Any other questions? So what we like to see then is to get those presentations to us and create that one that side by side
Absolutely.
that Commissioner Warner requested. And also I will be in touch with you once I have another conversation with Mr. Baskin, and I will take point and speak to the tax assessor as well. Although we may be seeing a different one here soon, but this conversation will be the same. Could any other commissioner think of anything different or in addition to?
Yeah, I did want to ask Mr. Chair, I don't mean to try to do too many things at one time. I know we need this mandatory trash, and I recognize it's going to take a couple of years to get it going. But any update, or are we gonna wait on the transfer station, or we just on hold with that right now? Or is that piece that's coming later or what?
No, I think the direction that we gave at our last meeting was to, what was it, to get the prices? Or did we already have the sale prices for the property?
Hold it,
Okay.
holding it.
I believe Ms. Dees was putting together a summary of the parcels and the approximate costs.
Right.
Some of the parcels, remember, there's more than just one. I believe one or two of them had list prices, and a couple of them were, make an offer.
Make offer, yeah.
So she was putting together some comparables to try to give you a benchmark of a starting point. So.
And they were gonna comprise that information, and then we were gonna bring it, or I was gonna bring it back before the board to see if you wanna entertain even, looking at the prices to move forward, or it's something that's gonna be needed, and it's something that can be done on the front end of mandatory trash pickup, correct? And it's something also that could be for bulk items, even though you got the trash pickup. I don't think the haulers, correct me if I'm wrong, will not get large bulk items.
No, they typically will get bulk items.
So they come pick up a refrigerator and whatnot?
Yes, sir. That's one of the options that Josh presented as a value added, where you can include bulk items in the standard service or an additional price. Now, they're not going to pick up your refrigerator in what they call a packer truck.
Sure.
It would be a special trip. And that's why it's probably a special price might be the preferred way of handling that, because it's an additional service they provide. The only thing about the transfer station, remember the discussions about competitive advantages, if what comes first between mandatory collections. There's some legal issues there that probably need to be vetted first. I don't think it impacts what Ms. Dees is doing at this point, but.
No, but there was a conflict of interest possible.
There is definitely one that needs to be discussed. I don't think we're prepared right now to discuss it at this
That's
point, but we acknowledge it. It's an issue.
Yeah. So basically, once we get a report back from Ms. Dees, then we'll make that report available to the commissioners, and then we'll look at next steps or possibility of just holding it until we get further along with the mandatory trash pickup discussion. You good, Commissioner?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Hearing no other questions, thank you, sirs, for your presentation. Let's go to the item 3 on the agenda. Proposed agenda for next week is a recommendation for an award for custodial services annual contract. Mr. Stanford, you gonna take that, or did you get in touch with Ms. Rogers?
I can take it.
Okay. What is your question, Commissioner Hamburg?
Well, I want to see if this has anything to do with what I've been thinking about is it's somewhat of a problem for me, and it could be for the other districts also, especially since we have additional rec centers, the intergenerational center and all. I know we're having a problem getting and keeping maintenance folk up at the Virginia Gray Rec Center. And it's causing a problem as far as the cleanliness of that. And I know we have had a couple folk that were interested in being employed, but the process was taking so long. And when our director would get back in touch with the person, they said, oh, well, it was so long, I've already gotten another job. I'm working somewhere else. So I just want to see if this facility services or whatever, if this is going to help with keeping some of these buildings clean or not, since we have additional buildings.
Yes, Commissioner. So the goal was with the fact that we're onboarding additional facilities in our inventory, and there was a varying level of services at a lot of the other facilities, we thought it would be prudent to have a custodial service contract go out. We've had several vendors come through. They did a walkthrough of 112 Smith Street about square footage. And so what will be on the agenda Tuesday night, Ms. Rogers is bringing forth that as a contract for the board to approve. And it will be kind of what we call on-demand services. So if we were to lose a quote-unquote maintenance staff person at a recreation center or a senior center, theoretically, we can call in the custodial service to assist us with that space in the interim. Also, we recognize that with a varying level of services, it may be prudent in some instances that the custodial service can go in the building at midnight, like they do in a lot of commercial buildings, and do some of the deep cleaning at midnight or during non-operational hours. So therefore, we're combating not just our day-to-day operations with maintenance, but also look at our non-operational hours for custodial staff to go in and take care of some of our buildings.
Well, I'm not sure if that's answering the problem that we're having with the rec center or not. And I don't know if anybody else is having a similar problem. But
We did at a couple of them in
Right.
one in District 3 for a while, and I think it's getting better. But the aquatic center, I'll be honest, was one that I had to recently send over, about several months ago send over, but it was pretty rough. I went in myself, it was pretty rough. But I'm interested, I'm a little bit taken back. We've not been cleaning our buildings at night like a Chick-fil-A or any other businesses do, like a deep cleaning. We've never done that before.
Yes, we would traditionally do seasonal cleanings. So in a lot of the facilities that have maintenance staff, they may go into a facility at the beginning of the spring or the beginning of the fall, and then they would rotate the staff to do a deep cleaning in those spaces. But we figure with the frequency and more importantly, in this COVID environment that's probably calling for more of a deep cleaning more frequently, we thought it was important to pivot to additional custodial services on top of that.
Okay.
well, right now, the problem we are having is getting maintenance. I don't know if it's they're part-time jobs, and I'm not sure if it's the pay. I don't know what is going on. Like, I do know that the last person or two that we were inquiring about, like I say, by the time that whole process, which seemed to be very slow, was finished, the person we had in mind, had already taken another job somewhere else. So I don't know, but I think if that kind of problem is prevalent now, I'm not sure what will happen once we get these other buildings on board and all. So just wanted to bring it to the attention of you all. Like I said, I don't know, and I guess some of the other places are having problems too. And let me just say this, and this is a compliment to the Frank Bailey Senior Center. They have a crew up there, and when we were there regularly and all, that place, you could see your face in those floors and all. It kept very clean and all. But again, the deep cleaning in like the pool area, locker and all, we had a problem, and I think that was finally handled. I don't know. So I just want to know what we're gonna do. If somebody could help us on that, or if maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. Let me just say that. But I do know that right now there is a problem at the rec center.
So Commissioner, I think from a maintenance standpoint, there are primarily 3 buckets we have worked out of. In some facilities like senior services and recreation centers, we have maintenance staff that we hire, whether it's full-time or part-time. And then some of our other ancillary facilities, refuse control, sends staff over to clean those facilities. So there's not necessarily, well, in some instances, there's dedicated staff in those buildings, but it's under the umbrella of refuse control, so it's not necessarily, and I use Annex 3 for example. There's refuse control staff that's in that site, but it's almost 3 to 4 different departments in that building, so it's not an assigned staff member from that department. And then thirdly, what we're doing now is the third bucket would be the custodial service by having a private entity go in and address some of those areas where there might be multiple departments in the building, but also to have a stopgap measure within in the event that a Parks and Recreation or Senior Services cannot hire a maintenance staff person in a timely manner. We can now lean on the custodial staff to help out in that space until such time we can get a person onboarded, or the custodial company would come in and do the work for us on a more routine basis. So we're looking to evaluate that in a more succinct manner. Clearly, and like I stated, in some instances, we have staff in place, but the custodial contract will help us in the areas where we're derelict or not necessarily providing the service at the level that we need, because either we don't have staff in place, or we've had minimal staff in space. So the custodial contract will help us from that end.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this?
The only thing I will say is I just hope we really monitor this process, because what I've heard stated is it's not so much that we don't have people interested in the jobs, it's the timing or the time that it takes to get somebody processed to be able to take that role. So I think that we have to work it from both ends. I do know that we could use the additional help with the services, the outside services, but you also don't want to be spending more for outside services when you can shore up your process internally, operationally. So I would like for us to work from both ends to resolve the issue if possible. But I do want to give kudos for the outcome of the aquatic center. A lot of that had to be changed out, but I will have to admit the cleanliness still has to be something I even monitor as a commissioner, because we do get the calls. So I'm hoping we can resolve those issues, although it's really nice and renovated now.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions, statements, comments? All right, thank you, Ms. Stanford. And before we adjourn, I'd like to take this opportunity to, just like Commissioner Warner just said, give kudos to our elections director, Shauna Dozier, her staff, and the poll workers, especially the poll workers. Yeah. You know, we are in a COVID environment. Poll workers showed up. They did an excellent job. Those individuals who were in the back room counting ballots, I mean, of course, just like anything, you had a few hiccups here or there, but they did an outstanding job during this election cycle, and they still got a job to do, because they're doing a recount right now, as well as December 1st, and then January, I think it's 5th vote. So they are working hard. I know they have got to be exhausted. So when you do see them or know anybody who's a poll worker, take opportunity to say thank you. Thank you for doing the job that they do. Clayton County showed up and was on the national level in terms of our elections here and the voters. So we got to do it again. Everybody got to show up and vote. Exercise your right to vote. Make sure your voice is heard.
Definitely.
Any other commissioner would like to add any comments?
Yes, I would. I know it's Thanksgiving, and I would just like to say we've got a lot to be thankful for. One of the bad things about working at home is I watch too much CNN, and you see so many people hurting, and we have so much to be thankful for. Amen. Because there are people out there who are hurting, people who don't have food, and we can't even imagine, seeing some of these people. And it's not just what people used to say, just service workers. There are people who used to make $96,000, mm-hmm. and now they have no income, and they're out trying to get food. So in this season of being thankful, we just all have a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that, because we have, as a county, have not laid off or furloughed any of our employees. And exactly. That just shows our commitment and value that we place in each of our employees.
Chairman, can you also mention the testing for the college students coming?
When they come back?
Yes.
I don't know if we set a date yet or not, but basically what we are setting up through our Department of Emergency Management is to test our students when they come back home, not back home, but back to school at Clayton State, to make sure that as they enter into our county, that they are COVID-free. And if they are have COVID, that they receive the necessary attention that they need to get to make sure that we safeguard our community and keep everybody safe. So again, we're talking about our community, doing all we can for our citizens and the children that come to our community to learn and play. So I think Clayton County is doing a tremendous job, and I'm absolutely proud to be the chairman of this county.
I agree. Doing a great job. All the commissioners are constantly doing, the food and so forth or whatever. So, we're looking out for our own. It's a great thing. Last week I did a class to parents about resources during this COVID environment, and everything that is within our county from the evictions and so forth to where they can get food and housing and the the electric and all of that. And people were just so appreciative, and so many people didn't know services were available. So again, Clayton County is on the money and looking out for its people. So much to be thankful for in this county.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then another vein, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, please, during this holiday season and after, let's please continue to remind people if they are not registered to vote, to please get registered, because we have a big election coming up, January 7th,
5th, I think it is.
with the senatorial races.
And there's
Public
one
Service
before then.
Commission.
There's a runoff just before then as well. Don't
Yeah, but
forget.
she's talking about registration. You can't register for the December 1st,
Right,
runoff.
no, I'm talking.
But the January 5th election, you can currently
Can
still
register.
get registered. So, yes, if you are not currently registered, please go get registered to vote in the January 5th election. But don't stop there. Actually show up and vote.
Right, and I've been, some of these voting gatherings and all, and they've been telling people, hey, if you know somebody, at least bring 1 or 2 people to vote that wouldn't ordinarily vote or that you don't know and all, and that should help. So, I mean, we just need a big turnout and all for this election coming up, for this senatorial race.
And the early vote in December 14th, just in case we get snow and ice on January 5th.
Right, thank you.
This is 2020.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Get it done.
Yeah, I do advance anyway, I don't.
All right, any other comments? All right, if none, we stand adjourned. Everybody have a
Happy
great
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. Yes, ma'am.